The minutes from June 16th, 25.
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the 16th, June 16th, 25.
Second on that?
I'll second that.
Any questions on that? All those in favor? Uh, Any public comment? Anybody on there for public comment?
I didn't even see.
They're all the concert.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay. Discussion and action on the committee report. Charles, I'll let you kind of lead off with that.
Yeah,
He made copies here for everyone.
right. So I'll just give you a sense of how I developed this. I sat down, put a first draft together, met with Carl, we reviewed it. Reviewed it with Laurel, had her take a look at it, mostly for editorial. So I see this as a draft. I'm happy to make changes. I mean, what I tried to do with this report is accurately reflect what we did, right? I mean, I definitely didn't want to insert any opinions in it. I see this as more of an act of journalism, right? What I'd like to do, if it's okay, is I don't think we need to read it together, but if we could just walk through it. Darcy pointed out I spelled her name wrong. I'm sorry. Brett, I believe I spelled your name wrong. I'm sorry. I will.
I think Jen uses two N's in her name.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what-
so let's.
Here.
So if we could go through it, and then I think there are two parts, and Laurel, I got your your recommendations, and John, I incorporated some feedback you gave. But I don't think we need to read it, but if we could just kind of go through it. And I'm really looking for any feedback like spelling, grammar, typos, those kinds of things. But then, of course, does it accurately reflect what the committee did over the past 6 months and the votes you took during that marathon session the last time we met, which I know was a long night for everybody. And again, we can certainly approve the report tonight, or throughout the course of this discussion, approve the report as amended. I will make lots of notes, and then I'd like to get a final draft of this together. I think our next step is, once the report is approved, scheduling up the joint Board of Education, Board of Selectmen meeting for us to present the report.
Mhm.
That sound reasonable to everybody?
Yeah.
So let's do it. Let's go through it. So, page 2, I've just got the executive summary, right? The first paragraph of the executive summary, I believe the 3 bullets there are the most important parts. I got from this committee a unanimous agreement that urgent action is needed to address infrastructure needs. That consolidating from 3 to 2 elementary schools is unanimously supported by the committee, and moving 6th grade to the middle school, it was also something the committee unanimously agreed to. Yep. All right. The key recommendations then, I got us to, based on the votes taken, and I break the votes down later in the report, but just in terms of an executive summary: renovate to new Valley View pre-K 2, reconfigure Gildersleeve, not renovate to new, to serve grades 3-5, decommission Brownstone with a recommendation that 3 to 4 million be put into it specifically to upgrade electrical so that it could be used by Park and Rec, Portland Youth Services, Portland Food Bank, and then expand the lease with Oak Hill. And then, of course, for the secondary complex, focus on the HVAC system, which you can feel right now is very humid. One of the things we need to fix. HVAC systems, new roof, 8 million, and then apply the savings. But otherwise focus on the HVAC system and the roof at the secondary school. Those were the 4 bullets that I think we got to.
Just really quickly, Charles, before we move on, I think, to be clear, that this committee voted on 2 million at Brownstone. I think that was the number that we took action on, and it might be that the Board of Selectmen looks at what the actual costs are and determines that 3 to 4 million is more realistic. But I do think that if we're being accurate, we should reflect what the vote was, which was 2 million.
2 million. Done.
Agreed.
And I think we'll have to make that edit on pages 11 and 12 too.
Can I keep going?
Yes, please.
All right. And then, the offsetting savings from decreased operational costs from the consolidation, retiring a bonding obligation specifically on the secondary school, and then eventually on the park, and then the state reimbursement, which the breaking news for all of us tonight is we got our July 1 number. Well, you want to share the news? You were the one who saw it and shared it with me right away.
Last year, Portland was eligible for 51% reimbursement on these types of construction projects. And the good news is as of July 1st, we are eligible for 54.06% reimbursement. If this doesn't go to referendum until next spring, we're looking at whatever next year's numbers are. We don't know what next year's numbers are, but we're heading in a good direction.
Good
That's a
job.
big jump. 4 points is a big jump.
And that didn't include the up to 5% for our participation in open choice and the little bit more for pre-K. So on the Valley View project, it could be close to 60% reimbursement on the 47 mil, which is
Good deal.
outstanding. I mean, that's 60 cents on the dollar, right? I mean, for the eligible projects. Okay, so the other part is I wrote the report, I wanted to get out and address a lot of the reasons I heard. Now, again, this wasn't a scientific poll, but, I read Facebook a lot. I saw the editorials in the River East. Lots of feedback was given to me about the reasons why people were uncomfortable with the pre-K 5 school. Right. And I thought it would be, and I know we talked about this, I thought it would be important to address those concerns in the report. Now, unless you have others, the primary reasons I heard why people voted no in November were very uncomfortable with the large school, going from 3 of the smallest elementary schools in the state to one of the largest, but into the 80th percentile or so elementary schools in the state was something that people were uncomfortable with. I heard a lot about traffic concerns on Bartlett, High Street, and Hall Hill Road. I heard concerns about not clear, no definitive insight into what would happen to Gildersleeve and Brownstone when decommissioned. I also heard that, hey, you didn't include any bonding in that November for the secondary school. That was something people were.
Charles, can I interject right there?
Yep.
As I'm reading it, it reads the opposite way. If bonding includes funding, should that say bonding did not include funding?
Did not include, correct. Thank you. So we do this, right? So that bonding did not
Well,
include.
No, sorry, just to push back on that a little bit. The way that Charles has framed each of these is how the concern was addressed. So like the facility size was a concern. It's been addressed in here by preserving smaller schools with developmentally appropriate grade spans. The traffic has been addressed and that it's expected to remain manageable. Does that make sense? So for the secondary school, our recommendation includes bonding to address critical needs at the secondary complex.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's listed as a
It,
topic versus answer.
I'm reading it as the things that people didn't like.
Yeah.
And this,
Which I think
Is in the next part.
is in the next section.
Okay.
where
The
he goes
executive
into
session.
what the
Okay.
concerns were more deeply.
sorry about that.
No, that's right.
The next one, of course, I heard a lot about the costs and the impact on mill rate. I think that was not clear for a lot of people exactly how much it would cost, not only the cost of it, but also because you didn't include the cost for what might happen to, if you're going to tear apart Gildersleeve or, what the disposition of the decommissioned schools, those costs weren't included. So there may have been hidden costs and the overall cost was a concern of folks. And then I think that I heard a lot about how it was communicated. I learned a lot too, that more communication, clearer communication. It was a lot for people to wrap their minds around, and that we need to do a better job getting ahead of this and clearly communicating with our community about exactly what would happen. Those were the, 6 reasons that I heard as I was seeking feedback on what was the reason for a no vote.
No online surveys. No.
Right. Yeah. Right. So then the next steps, I think that, this would be, summer, fall, we would need to begin community outreach. Fall, we have a lot more work to do, right? We have to develop education specifications plan, prepare the bonding. There's a lot of work to do this fall into the spring. I think I heard from this committee that the recommendation is to target this spring, 2026, as a date for a potential referendum, a bonding referendum. So all of the work that needs to be done to get ready for that is a lot. I'll be very busy this fall. Got it done though.
I still think it should be in November, whatever November, because I think you get a true representation of the taxpayers, but. And there's not an additional cost to the taxpayers to do it in the spring. And I'm not saying rush it, I'm not even saying it's possible. I know there's a lot of moving parts here, but I do truly believe, it should always be on, and this is a big deal for the town of Portland, should be on a November ballot, in my opinion, but that, just giving you my 2 cents.
John, has there been any discussion about that with the Board of Selectmen or not really?
No, I think they're pretty much waiting
To hear what
to
we have.
hear what we have to say. Yeah.
And they may want it in the following November by the time all the things get in
Right.
order.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you on November. I just think trying to do it this November is.
Correct. Yeah,
The
yeah.
education process can't happen in that short window of time.
I actually agree with you. So, but keep in mind, there's an additional cost and it's thousands of dollars to do a separate referendum. It's not cheap.
I think if you targeted it around a budget vote, then it wouldn't be an additional referendum. It would be same.
The question
I
just
still-
goes on.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but you-
spring is not budget.
Yeah, but you don't get you will not get the representation that you would in November. You wouldn't get what the true residents of Portland want, in my opinion. But whatever, continue.
Sure. I think, I think we can share, I can share that feedback with, when we present. Ultimately, it's a Board of Selectmen decision.
I would say we should take that out. I don't think that's our decision. It's gonna be theirs, but whatever. I don't agree with that, but I think this is a big deal for Portland and I think it should be represented by the most votes you have get.
When the most
That-
people
I'm not gonna
vote.
fight over if you want to leave it.
No, I think I missed that myself. Cause I thought we were striving for November. We were gonna try to do as much as we could if we could pass this. To get this moved forward and to the Board of Select for discussion where we'd have 3 months to educate before that election.
Prior's recommendation was to hold
concerned.
off until the
Yes,
spring.
it was,
They were saying
okay.
to try and.
That's where I
get
heard it. I
November
think I
referendum would
missed
be
that.
really rushed, wouldn't give us enough time to communicate effectively. But waiting till the following November means we've missed the June grant deadline again, and we're talking millions more every time we wait, right? That pushes us off an entire
Right.
year.
Well, think about what you just
More.
said. The person that potentially benefits the most would like us to wait till it has the better chance of passing. That's what I just heard you say.
No,
Yes.
So
the
then-
spring-
then-
the
I don't know if
spring-
it's gonna
okay, I don't
spring- a
think
spring
that's
vote.
fair.
I do. I don't think you're going to get the same turnout. I think that's an accurate statement. I don't believe you're gonna get the true representation of the taxpayers of Portland in November versus the spring. And we are now leaning with Fryer's opinion, who I would say we should not do that because they have a direct interest in it being a spring vote versus a November vote, in my opinion.
They don't have a direct interest in what I would
There's
say,
a more
what I
likely
would
chance
say,
of
Ben,
that.
take Fryer's recommendation out of it. We went through this experience last year where the Board of Selectmen took action in June to send us to referendum in November. That timeline wasn't enough time to provide enough accurate information. We're now in nearly August, so to ask the Board of Selectmen to act now to send us to referendum in 2 months would be, I think, a disservice
I would
to the
just,
community.
you'll see, let's come back to this because you'll see shortly, there are other recommendations that I have in here, like. I think we need to do another demographic study because the demographic studies for the November are already now 4 or 5 years old. And that is, we know, a essential component of this is we have to dial that in because as we know, Portland got in trouble with this school if you don't have your demographic numbers right. So that and one of the we have to do is whether it's Fryer or Slam or McBloom or anybody else, we need to hire an architect to come in to put that conceptual order of magnitude budget together because it can't be, not that Mike's numbers were back of the napkin, but he was putting those together based on square footage guesses and general construction rates based on that. That's not enough. You need the detailed budget. And then additional, our recommendation is that you'll see that the Board of Selectmen is asked to hire a financial planner to come in and say, what's the impact on your net grand list with the tax abatements retired and the $50 million Nordic Spa going in and all of these things and how that will affect mill rate. And then, of course, you have to take all of that and go to bond council. And one of the things we heard last time was that the question could have been written differently that might not have shocked people as much. Now, to do all of that in August, September, October could be done, but boy, oh boy, I better not go on vacation next week.
As I recall, the problem that we had last go around was we were told as soon as the issue went to bond council and they got involved, we had to shut our mouths.
Yeah.
And stop talking about it. And up to that point, little to no education had been done. That in my mind, that's why the window between now and November, I don't think is realistic. Because as soon as you talk to bond council, and I really think that question, I made some notes to talk about tonight, but I'll say it now. I really think the question, the way the bond question is written, has to be based upon feedback from the public. Because, you know, if we just go in there with a question we want to ask right this very minute without their feedback, we may not get what we want to hear. And quite honestly, I believe that if we do presentations to the public, I think it would behoove the town to do some kind of an exit survey with each one of those. So that when you're writing your bond question, you know what people are concerned about, what matters most. And we did not have that last time. We didn't have well, maybe we had the time to do it. We didn't get it done in a timely fashion.
How many public meetings do we have for residents to come in and ask for that?
The focus groups, many.
I'm not talking about focus
Yeah,
groups.
yeah.
I take the Route 17 park, for example. How was that sold to the public? That was sold with numerous presentations in a public face-to-face forum where people asked questions, they were given the information. Whether they liked the plan or they didn't like the plan, they went to the polls knowing that thing pretty darn well. And I don't think this last time around, the public understood there were too many issues.
You mean not so much a meeting setting where all of us are contributing, but.
No, I'm talking about
Like a-
meeting in the auditorium and giving them a presentation on how the bond works, meeting a
Right.
presentation on what we
Like a
went through,
summarized,
line by
condensed-
summarize everything.
Yeah.
They need to understand
Yep.
this process exactly like we
Financial side
learned
of
this
it.
process.
I
Right.
think that's one of the.
No,
most
I agree.
important.
Yeah.
Like you
We
said,
missed the
we're gonna get
financial side of that
60%
whole
back.
Yeah.
Taxpayers.
The whole thing.
You
Focus
get down
groups
to a
had
dollar
nothing in there, it was
amount,
just
that's
a
how you
plan.
sell
Yeah.
things.
Right, right.
Yeah.
In my
But we-
I
opinion.
mean, I went to.
We were
seven
never-
And
focus
I'm
groups.
agreeing with you. I
Forgot.
No, I know.
It could be
Nobody did.
possible to get all that done by November, but
It's very unlikely.
it,
No,
yeah.
Leave it up to them.
right, and I get the 1 year delay is, you know, we just keep spinning our wheels, other than hopefully, we all wanted to see the money that we have for the old payment and potential, you know,
Yeah.
going towards, other than that, but.
Toward the high school.
Right,
which
but
was- yeah.
I just wanted to give my 2 cents that I think you get a better representation of all the taxpayers. If the vote is the vote, we're not changing how people vote.
Yeah.
I was my only
Side
point.
then, the flip side is, if you have this simultaneously with a budget vote, it might be the highest turnout for a budget vote this community has ever seen.
Yeah.
So there's that.
And I will say, when you have a November election and you have the polls in November, you do get a higher turnout, but you get a substantially higher turnout, or look at the other way, you don't get the turnout you would get in a non-presidential election than a presidential election. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is.
I also think no matter when it is, it has to be publicized all over when the votes are, because I mean, I drop my kids off at school every day and then it's like voting today. I'm like, voting today? How did I not realize, you know, I mean, I'm in every school and I was like, the vote is today. All right, okay. But I think it just needs to be out there a lot. Like, this is when this is happening more.
Okay.
Well, let's move forward and then, because I do want to get to the part where it lists all the other things in addition to. You'll see, sure. And then, of course, this would be if it prevails in the spring, it would be a 27 to 2030 process. Like, I mean, we would have to wait another year. Although the breaking news from Bob today is that the grant deadline may have moved from June 30th to a more month-by-month thing, but I think we're still learning about that. It's really that June 30th deadline now that you then have to wait until the following December before you can do anything. That takes 6 months of our ability to do anything.
So they would give us a decision by December 26th or in December of
Yeah,
26th.
theoretically.
And is
Yeah.
that for everything, Cheryl?
Yeah.
Or is that just for, Valley View.
Valley
to
View.
Renovate to new. So
Renovate.
the other two projects, and I'm not saying we should break it up. I don't believe we should do that. I think we should keep it all together and see. But so that would be the hiccup. That's what triggers that. Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Any other bonding that you asked for that wasn't dependent on reimbursement from the state at that 60% threshold, you could start spending as soon as the taxpayers approve it. It's really that renovate to new.
Well, then maybe that might not be the end of the world, because we have to pick one of the schools. If, assume it passes, and maybe we do Gildersleeve first. We could proceed. I'm just.
We were
putting it
just
out there.
talking about that,
Yes.
and Charles was raising some concerns about shifting students if you were to try and tackle Gildersleeve first. It brought up additional problems that weren't brought up if you dealt with Valley View first. So there would need to be some
Well,
problem
you know
solving.
that better.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Not-
with you,
not
I'm like,
in-
let's get this passed,
Right.
let's go.
Because then, right,
But
because then we don't.
there might be a
that
reason.
either, because we're not doing both
Yeah.
at once anyway.
No way.
I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
So maybe that isn't the end. I know it might be harder on you guys, but maybe it's for that 1 year. I don't know, just.
Yeah, we could talk about that, but it would be possible, but it would be far more costly. It
It
logistically,
might necessitate.
portable, yeah.
Portables, like.
Brownstone's got lots of cloud.
All right, well, let's keep moving through, and I think some of these things will come up again. All right, so then that's the end of the executive summary part. Then I get to the introduction where I just kind of repeat what was in the resolution the Board of Selectmen stated that formed this committee. And Darcy, I apologize for spelling your name wrong, and Brett, I apologize for spelling your name wrong. I will fix both of those. I think I
Jen's.
got everybody else right. And Jen's name is,
Two
I got
N's.
3 wrong, breaks 2 N's.
But you're so close on
Yeah.
each of them.
Oh, God. All right, sorry about that, right?
It needs to be as simple as Ben.
Right.
Grade 3.
Ben, Ben wins.
So then after that introduction where you should all be recognized and thank you for all the time that you spent doing this. So I just summarized the resolution that was passed and let everybody know that you all that gave your time so freely to commit to this. And then I start with the background, which was a review of how we got formed, which was after the failure of the November referendum, we came here. And then I just gave a little bit more insight into, again, those reasons that I heard that people voted no. Size of the school, traffic impact, uncertainty with respect to what would happen to Brownstone and Gildersleeve if they're decommissioned. Gym space was a huge concern I heard about, particularly affecting travel basketball, not addressing the secondary complex needs. The costs overall impact on the mill rate was not clear to people, and some feedback on how it was communicated, especially that we went into that silent period and clammed up and weren't out there getting accurate information out there, and that it was a very complicated plan. Those are the reasons I heard. If I missed any, you can still put them in
I
here.
think you kind of cover it, but the biggest one I heard was a lot of people did not have a comfort level with the 30 years. When they knew the high school, and I educated
add that in
them
the
because the
cost.
high school, middle school, at the time, the 12 million, give or take, that was needed up here, not all of it was failure on the new part, so the part we just paid.
What?
And I tried to explain to people, like, the roof had never been replaced on the high school side, and that's a big ticket. That's now in that 12, blah, blah, blah. So
Right.
I think it's but people have a fear of 30-year financing a school when you typically don't survive without major repairs 30. So that was another big one, but once again, I'm not sure how
I
much
think
we
you
should
can
go
add
with.
that.
This is up to the Board of Selectmen, how they have a comfort level
Right, they should.
of financing it.
But Ben, I do agree. I mean, I heard that statement a lot.
Yeah, I did.
Because when we were talking in many conversations that I was involved, the discussion would come up about the secondary schools and how it's been 20 some odd years
A hair over 20.
since that building was renovated and it needs a roof now. Or within a period of time. And in the same breath, we're talking about a new building with a 30-year bonding. And I heard that conversation many times. So I really don't think it's a bad thing to put in that there was concern about the 30-year duration.
There was, and I think we should talk about it because for example, I don't know what a new roof
Put it right in.
on Valley View, we'll use Valley View as an example because it's gonna be all new if it passes. I don't know what the warranty or the life expectancy
Right.
is. It 20 years?
20.
20, okay.
Well,
So if it's 20, I struggle to want to
State
finance
makes
something
it
for
30.
20 when I know. know it's gonna fall, or sorry, finance it for 30 when I know it's gonna fall. That,
I think that's great. How about if I did cost, mill rate, comma, and length of bond? And then add a
Yes.
sentence.
yeah, it's at least it shows nothing at all, Dr. Britton, it's
Yeah,
first
okay.
conversation at the time when you present that. I just think that was the other
like
big thing that I heard around there.
And once again, I mean, what we have uncovered through this process is that, you know, the reality is that this, no matter what we do, there's a lot of money involved here. There's, people are buying cars now, when you used to finance a car for 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, they're financing a car for 7. People are buying RVs and financing them for 12. I mean, that's the new world we live in. And, you know, I don't want to alienate the concept of more than 20 years, but I think the conversation needs to be had.
Right.
I think that's a really good point. That, you know, if we include it in here, it's not necessarily part of our recommendation, but we're acknowledging that it was a concern and raising it so that hopefully the Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
when they are making that final decision about what to send to referendum, can address it. Because if they opt for a 30-year bond, they need to be able to talk to the community about why they're choosing that. Is there, you know, is there a hope to refinance when interest rates go down?
Right.
Or is this, you know, here's.
And on
what
the
we're
flip
choosing,
side,
or
if
not.
you were absolutely positively never gonna do 30 and you tried to do 20, then you're not gonna get nearly potentially what you want to get accomplished.
Can you do 25-year or no?
Yes.
Yes.
We can.
But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to communication, right? It's,
Exactly.
there was
You can
no,
do like 22 and a half. You can
Okay,
literally-
right. And I know that we can refinance and go through.
With that goal, right.
but the decision was,
advertising
last go around, if we're
requirement.
reflecting on it, the decision was made and there was very little communication about why, so that the community could
I
understand.
could foresee the conversation in a public forum, in the auditorium being,
Yeah.
what does 20 get us?
Right.
What's the downside and the upside? What's 25 get us? What's 30 get us? I mean,
And that's
that
why
conversation-
bond council needs to be at
Exactly.
that meeting.
Yes.
Because there's gonna be questions there that Board of Selectmen can't answer, the Board of Ed can't answer, maybe even our finance director can't answer.
Right.
That's why that person, it is so key that our peoples
It's a,
need to be there.
it's a schedule based on percentage
Right,
and year.
right.
There's no, I mean, it's
And-
not, it's just a form. You can go online. and
Right.
grab it.
And maybe they can, somebody could explain, Fryer or whoever could explain to the taxpayers that, yeah, this building will last 30 years, you can finance it for 30. Then I'm
Right.
okay.
Right.
Reality is, I don't believe a lot of the major components are going to make it to 30. And I just don't want to shortchange the next generation by, essentially financing for an additional
No, I
10.
agree with you.
No, is not right.
Yeah,
But
I think
that's-
it's a
that's
good
all.
idea to add a sentence in here to address that concern specifically. I think it's a good
Yep, let's
idea.
keep moving on, Charles.
Good.
That's good.
All right, so the next section there is one of the first things we did is we reviewed the original facility studies report. I believe there's universal consensus that those 9 priorities that Lou's committee developed were things that we too committed to. That in this report address how the recommendations would address high quality academic space, school climate and culture, school security, energy efficiency, ADA compliance, community use, all of those 9 things. Okay, afterwards, if you'll remember, once we got through that part, what it really came down to, and I thought that this was important to say out, is these were our options. It really came down to, if we're going to move from 3 to 2 elementary schools, which elementary school was going to be decommissioned? Because we know any one of the 3 it could be. You could have decommissioned Valley View, could have decommissioned Gildersleeve, or could have decommissioned Brownstone. And I know that was the elephant in the room. Still is about, I know that's the, right, that's the place where we, everybody agreed, 6th grade moving to the middle school, applying savings and something like not doing nothing is not enough. We all agree. But in terms of the options, those were the paths that we couldn't get and still can't get unanimous consensus on. Is that fair how I laid that out?
Okay.
Yeah. And then the last part is I just kind of laid out what we did, the line by line review of the sightlines report, discussions with Fryer, the site visits, the many discussions we had kind of got us to, that's the work that we did as far as developing options. Then, of course, the facility analysis and recommendations. I didn't want to, this report, it was long enough already. I didn't want to go into excruciating detail, but I just gave a snapshot of the facilities, and then I included links to the Sightlines report that we went line by line through with Bob's input. And, what we recognize as things that were needed or we could take off, and there's a lot of discussion, so I link that here in the report. And then I get to the committee recommendation, which to me is the most important part. So for the secondary school, the recommendation is to ask the community to authorize a bond of 8 million to replace the roof, air handling units, and HVAC control systems to secondary school, and apply savings realized through the consolidation to address other infrastructure needs here until those savings are needed to shift over to pay the new bond. And that, I think that was unanimous. There was nobody said no to that. That's in terms of the secondary school.
Do we mention the retired bond too? The savings from the retired bond?
I get to that. I cover that, I
That's
think, in
about-
another
I
part.
think I also brought up that I didn't limit it to the secondary school and everybody agreed because those funds should be available district-wide. So if you have a catastrophic issue somewhere else, so I would be careful pigeonholing yourself into one school.
Right.
I do believe the money should go, because one way or another, I hope you're gonna spend it wisely, and I think you will. So if something goes at one of the other facilities that I wanna be careful, but I just don't wanna make us, because I did bring that up, and I would like that to reflect that, and that gives you a little more.
Could I make a suggestion? In that beginning of that third sentence in that section, other infrastructure need, what if it just says other district-wide infrastructure needs?
Yes, I'm trying to help, not.
I think you can use
Are you
the
on page
critical,
8
because we wouldn't really use
Page
it unless it was critical, but yeah.
District-wide.
other
District-wide infrastructure.
I'm just sorry, John, where were you suggesting?
But
which change?
committee recommendations, beginning of the third sentence, consolidation to address other district-wide infrastructure needs,
District-wide. Okay.
or whatever term, but I think just talk about the district and not.
That's, because perfect.
Yeah, you were. pretty
I mean, you take for an
that-
example,
that
right?
change
You,
in the
you-
motion.
you lost the boilers at.
Yeah, you just don't want.
Mhm.
Gildersleeve is the lone soldier sitting out there right now.
That's my, so maybe the boilers
Yeah,
go,
it is.
the boilers go. Now you got the ability to fix it.
Yep.
And I'm okay with that because
Right.
we're gonna be renovating that building to you. I'm sure you're gonna buy the right ones and blah, blah, blah. That's what I would like to. So,
Yeah.
I'm good at it.
That's an easy fix. Can I just, Charles, I emailed you about this, but I just, is it possible that we could that we could create new spreadsheets from Bob's master spreadsheet to link to so that, because in 4 different places for the secondary schools and each of the elementary schools, you're linking to the same document that has everything in the whole district on it, that line by line, and some
Yeah,
of
you
it's
can break
red,
them
some
up.
of it's black.
Just grab them and put them in.
But don't even just grab the whole chunk, like take out everything for the secondary school
Yeah.
into one document, take out everything the committee said, we're not gonna do this right now. Just include the stuff that was,
Right, so
that
that
you
was asked
determined,
for me to do, but
because I think otherwise.
I didn't want to do that. No, I agree with you, feel that's fine, but I thought it was, from my point, I thought it was necessary to show what we actually looked at and decided as a group not
Yeah.
to include.
So maybe
If
at the
it's not
end-
there, then they
Yeah.
didn't know that we actually looked at it.
Okay.
What
But-
about this? You forgot? No, we looked at that.
And I-
That's
So
my only
maybe,
concern.
Bob, we could even like sort it, so that it's just at the top, there's a list of everything
By
that's been
each
included and a
school.
sum. And then a list of what we took out and how much we removed, because my concern is that we know what that document looks like, but if you hand that to someone in the community and they look at it and they go, I don't know what the red is, I don't know what the black is, I'm seeing $18 million.
Tried I headed it with that all the red were those remaining.
My
I
fear-
tried to list it on the top. I put it in bold in there, everything included in red.
Yeah.
Everything in red was what the committee decided to include. I get it though. It is cumbersome. If
I
you're
think
not
it's
used to
cumbersome.
looking at these spreadsheets.
I-
However you want to break that up is fine with me, but I don't,
And I would remove half the columns, all the stuff in there that's not relevant, and
Yeah.
just streamline it so that it's
Yeah.
just the stuff that,
yeah,
You
they don't
know,
need
that you
script
said,
image,
like a-
just description.
yeah,
I
yeah.
cut that thing up many different ways
Yes.
and I wasn't really happy with any of the ways that I did.
I want to just say one thing. I don't,
I
believe we
just-
should break that up, and I'll tell you why. A lot of the things that we stepped over, or however you want to call it, was with the assumption we were going to start funding these things
Through capital, yeah.
And my fear is you're gonna now remove them. Most people won't even know they existed.
So keep them at the bottom of the spreadsheet and say to be addressed by capital at a later date or something, but
I'm fine with.
There was a
I-
big
I-
mix there.
Yeah.
There was some stuff that really didn't need to be done.
right,
There was things that had already been done. So there's a lot of notes on a lot of those.
My-
That, you know, there's a few things in there that would have been not in red, but it also had a note that I put that was done in 2018, done in 22.
I
done
believe
this
if
year,
somebody wants to go
24.
through the document, they can go through the document.
I agree. I mean,
My
however,
only, I kind of agree with you,
Yeah.
Laura, because my only concern
it is
is
tough document.
you give, I mean, we want to educate the public and we want them to understand the decision-making process we went through, and we want them to look at what we, based upon our results, what we're proposing. They need to see what we removed. But if you mix them together, people are gonna start drawing their own conclusions and the conversation may go sideways. You know, I think if you just with Valley View School, you have one section, which is would matter as many columns as you want. The items that the committee decided are moving forward and the items that the committee decided are not moving at this time. You can even put a column in that says capital improvement or whatever you
or
want,
not
but
needed.
I'm fearful that if there's too much mixed information there, it's gonna create more sidebar conversations than you want.
That's how I was
Okay.
feeling, John. You kind of summed up how I was feeling. When I clicked through that link and opened it up and I went, oh no, not this document again. Then I was just imagining someone who doesn't have familiarity with it, pulling it up and not being able to find the information that they're looking.
Think about the
for.
amount of time it took this group to go through that spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Over and over and over, and then think of hitting the people with that.
Sorry.
No,
I'm done looking
it's
at
not
it,
a-
giving me
I'm not being negative.
anxiety looking at it. Yeah.
I'm trying to find a way that spreadsheet works.
So
Yeah.
do you want me to group the top reds, that this is what's included, and then just put a header and then keep the rest there for them to look at that was discussed, looked at, but not included?
Yeah, and you could even, if you were feeling up for it, you could even add like a status column that says, like already addressed, not needed,
Most of that's,
will be addressed
That's
by
in there.
capital.
most of it's in there. I tried to do the stuff that was
Yeah.
done, the stuff that wasn't needed, and I mean, we all decided that, Jaren, that we put some money in, but the things that we eliminated were we decided that it really wasn't it was a capital project. It was a maintenance project.
Yeah,
It was, I
well,
don't,
you'd already done it.
yeah, exactly. So I didn't put those capital or maintenance projects in there because they were small numbers. But let me see what I can do and sort this up, and I'll save this, obviously. But let me do that and we'll send it out and see if it reads better for everybody. I can eliminate some of the columns too, or hide them at least.
Hide them.
And then I'll just hide them. Square footage, that's gonna throw people off, things like that. Quantities doesn't mean anything because it's all based, some of it's based on square footage, not. So I did that made it look much nicer. But I was a little concerned about eliminating everything that you spent a ton of time on looking at and deciding either to include it or not.
Cause somebody may see one of those categories, not a reason, should not have skipped over it, no, kind of.
Well, no, you're right.
You're right.
Especially those that are in our buildings an awful lot, they might see something that's on their mind and we decided to look at it and say it's a maintenance issue and they're saying, well, I thought that needed to replace 3 years ago. Why isn't it on there? So I think
Right.
I think we can clean it up though. You're
I
right.
think whatever we can do to make it a little more
Right.
digestible would probably be appreciated by
And I will tell you
anyone
that
who's looking to read through it.
I am not gonna do a lot of that, but my wife, who is
So great about
she
it.
is like a pro, pivot tables and that. No, she'll make it. She'll help me with it.
Thank
That's
you.
why I'm not afraid to say no. Or yes, I should say.
I will say, I think the most important piece is separating it out by school so that when you click on the link in the high school, middle school section, you just are looking at high school, middle school data.
I think that you can grab those too, but with that said, in those categories or for that school, we'll clean it up a little bit.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Thank you, Bob.
It is kind of nice to click on it and say, oh, this is Brownstone. I'm not looking, I'm not
Yeah.
scrolling.
You just click
Yeah,
on the
to
V
find-
in order to find Valley View.
Yeah, you knew
Right.
how, you saw how hard.
What does they say when you're writing an article, you direct it towards second grade level or fifth grade level or whatever? I mean,
That's great.
that's kind of the way I'm looking at this.
Dr. Britton, just a formatting thing, you have all the schools in bold too, but not Portland Secondary School.
Yeah, I see your logo pulled up there, right?
Yeah.
Just in great minds think alike, for sure. All right, Valley View. I just have a couple of questions. I want to make sure I got this right. So here is, it was again, back to the elephants in the room, one of the ones that we couldn't get unanimous on, right? There was uh, 3 votes to decommission Valley View. The 6 votes that voted to not decommission Valley View, I believe when I listened to the discussion, I heard the following reasons about why the 6 votes felt that not decommissioning Valley View made sense. Which were: 1, Valley View shares a campus with the secondary school, enhancing the potential for operational efficiency. 2, it's the only elementary school with sufficient acreage for future expansion if enrollment increases. That the facility is purpose-built, bathrooms and classrooms, pre-K already, for our youngest learners. That because Valley View doesn't have a full-size gym, it would not be as useful to Parks and Rec as a space and for travel basketball and other Parks and Rec's activity. And that other than leasing or use as another educational entity, the building was seen as having limited commercial value or resale value or use as a municipal facility. So the 5 bullets there, I think, reflected the logic of the 6 who voted not to decommission Valley View as the one of the 3 schools.
I thought the gym was determined if the stage wasn't there, that it would be sufficient. In that conversation. For parking.
Just that there's no gym there now, it would
It
mean
would need renovation in order
it
to
would
be.
need
Gym
work
could
to
change.
put in hardwood floors and line it.
There's no basketball.
Yeah, it's just it's a multi-purpose space. I mean, it could become a gym, certainly,
It's a little
but
short, needs some
Yeah.
work.
that would be a good sized project. But then I want to get to when the committee took the position to not decommission Valley View, that was a 6-3 vote. But then the next vote that came up, which was a recommendation to renovate Valley View to new, to create the space to add 2nd grade, that was a 7-2 vote. They get the votes right on that
You did.
and the logic correct. Right. Are we good with Valley View? And of course, I have a clickable link to, the spreadsheet, but that we're saying that the capital spreadsheets recommended in the sightlines don't make sense when you move to a renovate to new. Sightlines report kind of goes out. It's a full gut rehab, create the space for 2nd grade 2, so that even that clickable link to the sightlines report isn't as valuable as it would be for the secondary school, because you're moving away from capital alterations to full renovate to new. Make sense?
Which then by default. Valley View became an option. If you were just doing the renovate to nice, the only 2 facilities that would have worked were Gildersleeve, Brownstone. The only way to put Valley View in play. would renovate to
To create the space for 2nd grade.
right, which. I want to write that in there, I think
It does say that it's the only option that will accommodate the return of 2nd grade to Valley View.
But
that's.
it took me a while to find that, and I wonder if there's a way to emphasize that, like. If there was a cheaper way to do that school, maybe that would have been on the table, but I kind of agree. I had to reread this page a couple of times to find that, and that is really the. Primary reason it's renovate to new and not something,
Because it physically.
you have to do it to,
Accommodate.
I wonder if there's just a way for us
And
to,
italicize it.
yeah, something like that to.
Well, that was one of the,
Yeah.
it wasn't in this place, but somewhere else I made the suggestion of including that language where Valley View to renovate to new gives you additional classroom space
Right.
within the same footprint. And I looked at that as another benefit to that building.
If we went the other way, we were talking about potentially adding on space to the building.
Right.
Correct?
Sorry, I said it again, if not, which other way?
If we didn't renovate to new,
if you didn't renovate to new,
We were looking at adding on space, adding on addition to Valley
it just
View,
wouldn't have been
But-
able to accommodate.
Right.
Great.
Right.
You'd be able
Yeah,
to
we'd
flip.
have to,
or we would have had
Yeah,
to do
we-
something.
The only way to maximize that square footage is to renovate the entirety of the interior to create enough classrooms.
yeah, anyways, I just, if we, even if I put it italic, something to emphasize it, because that is.
Yeah.
important.
What exactly are you putting italics?
The,
Just
just
this
says
last.
only
sentence, yeah,
option that
the
will
only option that
accommodate.
will accommodate the return of second grade development, like it has, because I can imagine online someone saying, well, why are they doing a school new? Why don't we do both renovate to nice or,
Right.
you know, whatever, just do renovations, but
Can I
it's just not
suggest a
possible.
bold italic?
Yep.
Sometimes the bold, it's not that overwhelming, but the bold italic pops. An italic will get lost.
Done. All right, so then the next one is Gildersleeve. Now, again, this one was interesting, right? Did I make it clear enough that, again, that the vote was not to renovate to new, because in renovating to new, you would have had to lop off 9,000 square feet,
Right.
which I think we all realize is a bad idea because of how that would inhibit us if enrollment grew in the district. So that's why we're at the alterations, capital improvements, renovations to nice. Of course, we understand, though, that that means a lower percent reimbursement from the state, but it allows us to retain that 9,000 square feet.
Is there any, I'm wondering, 9,000 square feet is 9,000 square feet to people, but can you put that maybe in a little bracket next to that? What's that equate to? How many classrooms? Do we know?
It was
God, it was basically like the.
Because I think that would mean a lot to people.
It was the addition.
It
It
was
was
the
the
wing.
equivalent of the 1995 edition.
It's the art room, the music room, the special ed space, the bathrooms, the kind of like, if you look at the building from the side where the playground is,
Yeah.
that wing.
Does anybody think it's important to explain what that 9,000 square feet is?
I think it's a good idea.
I think people need to know, like.
I
if you
think, I
said
think it's a
the
good idea.
space of
They
the
need to know
gym,
that.
like the size of the gym, people,
I mean, I've done this a lot in my former job, and I always, when I'm writing a document, because I'm so close to it all the time, I would always try to have to pull myself back and realize who I'm talking to.
Mhm.
We are so used to it, we know what we're saying, but
They
I'm
don't.
trying to come from the perspective of somebody reading it for the first time.
Mhm.
You know,
I think how to say, how to describe, and
what you just said, maybe
Yeah.
just the wing, this would be the wing that includes.
special.
You could say, approximately
Specialty.
9,000 square feet of the existing facility, comma, the equivalent of, or something like that.
Three
You don't have to-
special
Come-
specialty rooms.
Yeah.
equivalent of.
Something like, then it's not a,
Let me wordsmith, I can do
Yeah.
that, like define the 9,000.
But I really
square
think
feet,
that
which
that's the
would
kind of
in-
stuff
which
we
would
need to get out.
include 5
Right.
classrooms, bathrooms, office.
They're not typical classrooms, like the art room is
Like
almost
that.
a double classroom and,
So it's musical.
right, so
Right.
that's why they're specific to those special.
But for those people who have children in the school or have had children at school, for a lot of them,
Mhm.
they'll know
you could picture.
what that
Yeah.
means.
My only concern about identifying the uses of those rooms is that somebody then might panic and say, oh my God, we're gonna get rid of
We're
art.
getting rid of
Right,
art
right,
music.
we're not getting rid of art.
Yeah.
music, right,
No,
so-
I mean, what if
Well,
you
if you
instead
say
say, like,
specials.
instead of saying, you know, listing the classrooms out, what if you were to say approximately 9,000 square feet of the existing facility? You know, and something about like, which is, you know, roughly the size of the 1991 edition.
Equivalent to the 1991 edition. I like that.
The problem with going down that road is it's a double-edged sword. You're now pointing out that by decommissioning the brownstone, we're forfeiting approximately 20,000 square feet of usable space, including an auditorium, which I'm not sure you should be going down that road. I mean, I think I get what you're.
Well, I'm saying the reason, and I could be totally off the mark, but as I said in my comments, I think the reason that I went for Valley View was because by doing it the way we did it, we're gaining square footage, we're gaining classrooms within that square footage. By going the way we're going with Gildersleeve, and people need to understand why, well, why aren't you going for the 56%?
Right.
Well, if we went for the 56% and that state requirement for square foot we're losing 9,000 square feet, which means we're losing
Wing.
this.
Right.
Yeah, a wing.
Yeah,
You could literally say.
you could say
the
that,
wing.
that would be a wing of.
Yeah, that's how.
the
I-
other six wings.
We don't know what
Frankly,
the
in a
architecture.
gentler way, I think,
Yeah.
I just don't want
Yeah.
to see you open up, you know.
Yeah, maybe wordsmith. I
Yeah,
get what you're saying.
Because I,
Classroom.
Because some people might be not understand how large 9,000 square feet. is.
That's what I'm getting.
almost 25% of the building.
Well, that
We
might
were
be a
able
way
to-
to describe.
That may be a
which
way
is
to describe it.
equivalent
Yeah, we were
to
able to buy-
25%
Yeah,
of
that's
the
better.
existing.
We
So
dropped
I
the
like
suspension.
that, right?
I do
Just say
too.
we were able to, by going
Which
renovate.
equates to
not
approximately
renovate to
25% of
new,
the
we were able to
existing
do-
structure.
Yes, we're able
Yeah,
to
that's good.
Yeah.
retain approximately 25% more square foot.
And
Something to that.
that's what I'll do is I'll
He's saying
figure out
we're
the
not-
total amount of square footage and then what 9,000.
That works.
Of the total. amount.
Then we're
That
not, we're
part.
not hitting
I think
the,
you're better if you're trying to sell this thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
percentage is fine.
Boom.
That's
Yeah.
good. And I think the following paragraph really kind of sums it up, sums up why that decision, why we arrived at that decision to try and preserve that square footage. So I think it encapsulates the conversation.
All right, so then in terms of brownstone, again, I know that this is the other place where there was not unanimous agreement that for the 7 people who voted that Brownstone is the school that the committee is recommending for decommission, the bullets here reflect the logic that I heard discussed that led to the 7 votes that Brownstone is the school that the committee is recommending for decommission. Those reasons are the cost of alterations and renovations new at Brownstone were higher compared to Valley View. True statement there, right?
Mhm.
That in order to, if you were going to go the renovate to new route, in order to remain within the state square footage requirements, renovation to new would necessitate demolition of large areas. Oh, I should, I see it, or say of large areas of the building.
that's an accurate statement.
And that was something that would not be welcome. I think if people saw parts of Brownstone being taken down.
I'm not sure we included that by the end with the additional square footage they were allowing due to the historic nature of it. And potentially just eliminating the basement. I'm not sure that statement's accurate. So I would tiptoe on that one
The
too.
historic square footage was only the original high school, the front of the building though. And a lot of what they were talking about potentially as an option would be removing the wing or portion of the wing, which was not the original, which is not historic.
So we ran the numbers out and by eliminating the basement and with the additional percentage from the historic section of the front, you're accurate on that, which also includes the auditorium. It was right there, depending on whether we shifted 6th or not, and depending on how many grades we put in the building. In case we ended up, there was a way that it was very close by the time, there wasn't gonna be large sections lopped off. We didn't continue that path, but that's all I'm saying.
Right, there, and this was the sticking point with the facility study committee too. Putting 3 grades in there, 320 kids at the highest over the 3 years, only gave you X square foot. When you include the basement, the building's way over that. That's where we were at, either rip parts down, or that's where the special legislation with wall off parts of the building, give it back to the town. Got us.
We're removing it, walling it off, like I said.
So what-
That was an option. I
what
just wanna-
portions
because
of
there
the
were-
building?
That is and was an option.
Okay, so what if just to try and encapsulate everything, in order to remain within the state's square footage requirements, renovation to new would necessitate demolition of large areas of the building and or, negotiation of something about the basement, right? Negotiation of basement square footage.
Or special legislation to.
Yeah, and add a comment about the basement square footage in there too, and do use an and or, but I mean, the plans we looked at did involve demolition of those newer wings of the building.
The problem I have is it is almost identical as Valley View. There was about 9,000, I came up with 7, about 7,000 extra at Brownstone. You had more at Gildersleeve. I just don't think that's a fair statement. And the reason I want to get this right is I'm always the guy. If this fails multiple times in the future, all this information needs to be right because it's got to be a plan. So I just want to be careful.
Yeah, well, let me think about it a little.
That's all. I just want to be,
Yeah.
I want to get it accurate. Because there's almost no difference by the time you take the historical in the basement out. And now, which you can, and we're doing that, we didn't include that at Valley View. I mean, you can do it.
I mean, we went around and around and around with that with Fryer, and that there were options, but they did involve either tearing
Fryer-
out part of the building or dealing with the basement in creative ways.
Right.
Yes.
That's what either
Yeah.
tearing parts of the building down or a special dispensation of the basement.
We're in the same boat with Valley View. Prior made that clear. There are parts of that basement that we're trying not to count in the square footage because we're gonna use them for utility, and I don't disagree. And
Yeah,
I-
significant
But that's
people are
square footage.
concerned
Don't,
about
you
that.
can't compare Valley View basement square footage to this basement square footage.
Actually, I do compare them, because
no.
it never should have been square footage in the first place. We should have never had.
The
classified
basement,
grade.
the basement of this is as big as the whole first floor of the
Yeah, but
building.
Ben, I think
You
I
can't-
get it. If
And
I
it's been
say,
used as classroom
and like
space.
Laurel said,
Right.
and or special dispensation, whatever that means, of the square footage in the basement. So either lopping off parts of the building or walling off or figuring out what to do with the basement.
Why don't you
Which-
just, in that line, say, in order to remain within the state square footage requirements, renovation to new would potentially necessitate demolition of areas of the building and or a negotiated agreement for however you want to word it.
Special
retention of the base,
dispensation.
special
Yeah.
for use of the basement.
But why aren't we writing the statement that it could be treated the same as Gildersleeve if we had chosen? Why are we
What do you
going
mean?
down the road of saying renovate to new? We would then have to lop off. That's the same statement for Gildersleeve.
Yeah.
My point is,
Right, but we talked about that in Gildersleeve, and now we're addressing it here. That was one of the concerns, right? So Charles is talking through like. This was the concern with renovation to new, and then he's going on to talk about this, this is the concern if we were to only do substantial renovations and not renovate to new. So I don't know, I think we're splitting hairs a little bit.
I'm just curious why I don't see it under
Well,
Valley.
Ben, I
View.
think-
So then the bullet point, sorry, under Gildersleeve.
Square feet we just talked about.
Yeah,
Right,
well,
it should
Ben,
be
let
the
me-
bullet point that you
Let me
have to.
frame the bullets here. I'll
Yeah.
go back. The bullets reflect the 7 yes votes thing. Right, so.
Okay.
Right, the people who voted yes, I know we had a lot of discussion about it, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that discussion led to your no vote. But I think a lot of that discussion led to the yes votes from the 7 other people. So the bullets here are really for the people who voted yes. Did I capture the yes votes logic? Knowing that it's not your logic because you have a difference of opinion with the 7. Am I making
Yes,
sense?
yes.
So is everybody who voted yes comfortable with the way I have that bullet articulated there? But I do like and or special dispensation of the basement.
Yeah, I'm comfortable including the part about the basement, because I think that was all part of the conversation, and we went around and around. in
That
circles about
actually,
that.
that goes back
Yeah.
to Lou Pear's discussion previously,
Yes,
too.
it
That's
does.
always been an
It's
issue.
always been an issue.
Yeah.
One of the things that is not here, and I'm not saying it needs to be here, but of the fifth grade teachers came and presented.
Well, that's the next one. So, and then the next one again. People on this committee may not disagree with this bullet, but for the people who voted yes, I heard, and to your point, Brett, that even with substantial renovations, the committee or the 7 people who voted yes, the committee determined that the building could not adequately meet the developmental and educational needs of elementary age students.
I agree, but I just wanted to comment that the fifth grade teachers who would be remaining in that building, they themselves all came, they submitted a letter and said that basically this was their preference, was to not do it unless we could renovate to new.
Right. And I do think that
And like
That-
knowing what the teachers think, to me it was impactful for me. But I'm not saying it has to be in here, but I'm just saying it's not specifically that the teachers from the fifth grade teachers who made there all unanimously wrote a letter.
Yeah.
That was read.
But I do think that in terms of,
That's the content.
Right, that's
What
the
you said
content.
is the content.
and then the next one, again, whether we agree or disagree, the folks who voted yes, I heard that the school's location adjacent to the Connecticut River and the bounds of Johnstone Quarry, I'm sure you all saw the front page of the Middletown Press today, $50 million project well underway.
Mhm.
If you haven't seen it, take a ride by there. It's pretty amazing. So the school's location adjacent to Connecticut River and the Brownstone Carry in an area targeted for waterfront development, economic development, presents logistical challenges for drop-off, pickup, and daily school operations. Again, I know that the no votes believe that those could be overcome, but the yes votes, that was a concern.
The only thing I would add to that is the school's location on Main Street,
Main Street.
adjacent to the Connecticut River.
Done. And then, of course, the last one being, and John, I heard this from you, that the Brownstone Building, recognized for its architectural and historical significance and prominent Main Street location, holds the greatest potential among district facilities for repurposing as a municipal, mixed use, or commercial space.
You know, Charles, as I'm going through these again, the one bullet that I think is missing, around logistics, I mean, and it's a smaller thing, but it's an important thing, is the outdoor, the piece about outdoor play space.
Green space.
Green space, yeah, and having to cross the road to get to green space. I think that played a
We want to add
factor
that
as
as a sixth bullet? Or,
you know, whether it's a sixth bullet or if there's a way to.
I do see
I
it.
mean,
So you
what if
could-
you say
you could
presents
present-
logistical
yep.
challenges for drop off, pickup, outdoor
Activities.
activities and daily school operations?
And,
I don't know.
got it, daily school operations and outdoor activities.
And I just have a. It's not a logistical question, it's just a. Reading a lot of papers question. All of the. School headings start very similarly. You know, Portland High School. The construction of new 7th and 8th grade for Portland Middle School. The Portland implemented this, and this. Valley View Elementary School was originally constructed in 1953. Gildersleeve was originally constructed in 1964. Brownstone, the recommendation to decommission Brownstone Intermediate School follows.
That piece is missing.
So it-
Add description of historical background.
Correct,
Done.
just
Get
to,
30 minutes after.
And once again,
Right.
for
And create
the
consistency between.
folk that are newer to town, they need to understand
right,
that first section was built in the thirties and the next section and.
correct. I just think it
Yeah.
keeps consistency and flow and it.
Sure.
100.
Yeah.
So then the recommendation was 7-2 to put money into Brownstone specifically for the electrical system. And from what I heard was so that mini splits and other things can be done in the building to make it a space usable, especially in the summer, by Parks and Rec, Portland Youth Services, Food Bank, expanding lease with Oak Hill.
I just realized we're missing an important piece of the recommendation.
Oh, boy.
The recommendation was to decommission Brownstone and authorize the bond. I feel like those words are important, though.
And the comment that you had earlier, Laurel,
We
didn't-
we need to reduce the dollar amounts on this.
Yeah. 2 million, yeah, 'cause that's in the minutes.
Done. Very helpful. Make all that work. All right, so, the summary of the recommendations, I just want to go through these real quickly, right? So unanimous agreement, we have to do something. Doing nothing is not an option. Unanimous agreement, reducing from 3 to 2 elementary schools makes sense for Portland. Applying savings to the secondary school complex makes sense to everybody. And then I have 7-2 on all of those other recommendations that we just went through. Now, to me, the very bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bullets, I want to ask, you guys didn't specifically vote on these, right? But to me, these are essential things that need to be done, and I'm hoping that you'll be comfortable with me including them in the report, right? So first, my strong recommendation is that we get Prouda or another vendor. We got to do another 10-year demographic study. We have to get those enrollment figures dialed in for the next 2 years. The last ones are already dated. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but it's something that I think would be important that we do, so we don't get it wrong.
How old's the didn't you say the demographic study was only 5 years old and it's a 10-year study?
Yeah, it's
First one was.
3 years ago,
And
and
how
we
much
did
was it?
second one. So,
The last ones were like
Right.
$1,700, $2,000.
right, but my concern is that by the time we got these projects going.
Yeah.
The demographic report will be 5 years old.
Yeah.
So we really need to get.
Well, you're still within that.
True, but you know, 'cause the hard part, the interesting part is, and I have concerns about two things. I really want another demographic study for two reasons. One, you get to apply for reimbursement on your highest year, right? The other ones didn't include Brainerd Place. I included a memo that made a guess at what we would think Brainerd Place would bring in, but I think a new demographic study could truly not be a memo from Charles based on what that Dan guy told me other similar things did in Brookfield, which is what I did, right? But actually include the numbers as part of that projection and not an add-on that I throw in there.
If they don't help us, we'll just slide it to the side.
Slide.
Okay. I think on one of your bullet points, you should. School capital improvements at the secondary complex / district-wide or something.
Yes.
Just so there's consistency. I don't mind if you leave, like
Yep,
we
or district.
understand the goal.
Yep.
Is to start with the money up here, but I don't wanna. Block us.
Right,
So-
I'll add that to that, because we did that before. I'll include that here.
But I think you should probably keep secondary / district-wide, something to that effect. So then that statement speaks for itself. We are assuming we can do it up here and we should.
And that may be a selling point too, that people say you're not limiting the use of it.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see how it could hurt us.
Yeah. And I got it circled so we don't lose it again. Fourth bullet down, we also got to change that dollar amount associated with Brownstone.
To 2 million.
Yes.
Sorry, Ben, which bullet are you making the note
The-
about district-wide?
Up at the top, I think it's.
No, it's the last bullet. Authorize a
apply
bond of 8
saving.
million,
Yeah.
replace through air handling control unit support.
No, no, that 8 million
Oh, yeah,
was
right.
specific to the
No,
secondary
it's-
school. That's why I wanted to make sure I got it.
Secondaries.
The
Okay.
third, the third.
Slash.
And district-wide.
I would just, / district, right? So they speak for itself.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you can do both.
Gotcha.
I just think that's.
Just didn't want to put it in the wrong spot.
And I think we should just do that everywhere that in that report, go right through it, just do a slash and add the.
So let me run through a couple other ones. I want to be clear, because when we present this to the boards of selectmen and Board of Education, there's other things that really need to happen. And again, though you haven't voted on this, I'm hoping you'll see the wisdom in including this in the report, is that we need to contract with an architecture firm, right? Again, whether that's Fryer or Slam or, somebody else. We got the numbers that we have here, right? Again, those numbers didn't come out of what's called a conceptual order of magnitude budget, which is a long, detailed budget. They're Fryer's prevailing square footage for new construction rate. We really need an architecture firm now to come in on all three of these, all four, and look at the renovate to new, the renovate to nice, the brownstone, and the secondary school, and put together a detailed scope of work with actual numbers that can be shared with bond counsel and a financial planner, not our best guesses. Now, the numbers could go up or down. The longer we wait, I don't know where they're going to go up, but we really need to say, we think these numbers are accurate within what, 10, 15%? We need an architect to come in, sit down with Bob and me and say, all right, because the last one they did for the pre-K 5 school, Downs did theirs, Friars did theirs, they got together double blind, and there was this whole process they used that produced a very lengthy, detailed, itemized report that included soft costs and escalation and site work and, my goodness, like the number 47 may be right or it may not, but it's not based on anything except a broad 50,000 foot overview, which is not going to be acceptable to bond counsel.
Or the state
Or the state.
to even apply.
Correct. We need what's called a conceptual order of magnitude budget, which is a lengthy document that can, and the person who produces that needs an architectural license number, not a Charles Britton guesses number.
Charles, on that second bullet, contracting with an architectural firm. Are you somewhat involved in that process too, or is that done beyond you?
You know, that would be something that I really think that the town needs to invest in. We need, whether again, we go with Fryer based on their response to the bid last time and an extension of their existing contract, or go back out.
Well, that's why I'm asking that question, because I mean, what Ben has said. I don't want to overstep our authority on recommendations here, but is this an RFP process? We put this out to RFP, or do we go to the state list for vendors? But I want to make sure that this is construed and viewed as us doing our due diligence to get an impartial contractor.
Yeah, and that's part, yes, and I really want to be clear when we present this, that these numbers that we have here, they're back of the napkin, solidly informed though by Fryer, but they're not the number. It's not gonna be the number until it's in a document called a conceptual order of magnitude budget. We are giving our informed best guess right now, but
And people need to understand this is the process, you know, you don't jump straight to that because you gotta get there first.
Right.
And I think
So we followed the right
think
The
process.
board is gonna
to
make.
John's
a
point,
decision.
if we do go out to solicit bids, I think that's good. You'll also see who's hungry. You'll also get fair numbers. Whoever's gonna write.
I don't think we have a choice spot to go.
Yeah, I think we have to follow the
We have. I
the
think
existing
state-
charter
the
purchasing,
state-
and then I think the
in order
board's gonna
for
have
it
to
to
make
get
it,
that
otherwise
point,
it's gonna
right.
be a decision.
Wire.
not-
And I'm sure there's only.
I know.
So I
It's the same.
think
Would
we're gonna have to
have-
follow
Yeah,
the
yeah,
process.
but
Big one
at least then.
for everything.
We need to insert a little freshness into the process,
Sure,
and I think,
right, sure.
you know,
I heard 15% down. You were assuming, oh.
who knows,
See?
right?
It might go down.
I'm thinking the same thing.
But we should also be
Who's hungry.
clear
We're gonna
that
save
the
money.
going out to bid is just on the folks who are, for the architects who are gonna help us
That's first.
develop the scope of the project. That is entirely separate from the folks who would potentially eventually end up working with us if we were to be
That's it.
in past. This is a
Separate
pretty
bids.
limited,
Yep.
separate
An
contract
engineering
to
bid.
get us to referendum.
But I do think we should have a fresh set of eyes on that.
Yeah.
That's why maybe going back out to RFP and
Okay.
doing it
And maybe.
in a transparent way.
I have nothing against Fryer. think
No, but I
that's
think
right.
we
I'm
have
not
that.
trying, but
I don't know if our.
Or we could, I mean, I know it's
Charter even
faster.
allows us not to.
You can do an RFQ and just put a request for quotes
Yeah.
and see who's out there that's interested.
yeah,
And that may, because rather than going through the whole process and find we've only got a couple interested vendors out there.
The difficult part about that is I've written many, it's you need to make it right. That RFQ has to be, that request has to be right.
I got faith in you.
Yeah, and you might need to do one
But it is.
one
you
for
can't
Valley
really
View, one
miss
for
your-
Gildersleeve, one for
Yeah.
Brownstone, one for the secondary
Mhm.
school, you know,
Mm.
4 separate ones, because really we need 4 separate conceptual order of magnitude, well-informed, drilled down into.
And some may be specialized in, for example, in more older historic structures versus newer structures.
So you're
Or
comfortable with that?
renovate to new
as a-
versus
we
renovate.
gotta do that.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
can
We
vision,
we don't have a choice.
I can vision Brownstone being separate, but I don't really on the engineering side of it because of my background. I vision the renovate to new and the capital project being one engineering group that does that. And you might get 2 different construction firms. You may be able to bid it separately for the schools, but engineering wise, I think it would be a benefit financially for the town to
Mhm.
incorporate that together. I think if you split it out, then you're gonna add cost to that.
And you'll add time too.
But Brownstone being that latter part of that schedule, that could be a benefit for us to, again, you know, look for somebody who's got historic
Mhm.
work and stuff like that,
Mhm.
but maybe not.
Good, so I'll keep that there, which then sort of leads to the next one. Once those are put together, those need to be shared with, in this case, his name is David Eisenthal, who's the town's financial planner, as well as input, whether you want it 20, 22, 25, or 30, based on prevailing interest rates. If you bonded this amount, what's the repayment schedule, the amortization table, so you can see, you know, over the next, if it's 20-year at height, how many millions a year you're gonna pay for it, and then what the effect of that is on the mill rate. Right, and that will come from David Eisenthal, also something that's shared with bond counsel.
So is David gonna be the one that determines what's reimbursable and what's not?
No, what's interesting,
So
we
then how are
found
you
out,
gonna create an accurate?
That's gonna come from.
hold that thought, let me loop back to, hold that thought. So
That's a press.
then the next recommendation, and this is something to the Board of Selectmen. As the conceptual order of magnitude budget is being developed and the 10-year demographic study is being developed and that information is being shared with David Eisenthal, I recommend that the town engage a financial planner. You know, I've talked to Tom. Tom will not do this, right? This is outside of Tom's accounting. This is like somebody coming in and doing analysis, right? And that financial planner should look at Portland's current net grand list, that project growth based on things like Brainerd Place and the Nordic Spa. Look at that growth in the context of when tax abatements are coming on or off, and the impact of things like the changes to the car tax, right? And then also be looking at current debt obligations that have retired, the secondary school, and when the park retires, but also on the other side, what might be coming on, right? Like a whole picture of over the next 10 years, what can Portland expect in terms of liabilities and growth? And then share that in the context of, hey, when it's saying at your highest year on the repayment schedule, is that a 1 mil? Is it half mil? Is it a 2 mil? How does the growth in town offset the average taxpayer's, potential property tax bill or mill rate? Am I making sense on that? But that would be beneficial, I think, in lots of ways, but unless that work is done, the sticker shock could be something that scares people off unless people understand that that's going to be offset by growth in other areas.
So that's information the town needs to have in order to be able to communicate effectively about what the impact will be on residents.
So
And we've kind of talked about this too, that the town is heading into needing to redo the plan of conservation and development. And so they're already in discussion, that committee is, about trying to get some of that data, get a picture of some of that data anyways. And so that could be a potential collaboration or way to get that information for both purposes.
And my feeling is back to one of the original, to do all of that before November, I think would be very complicated to do. These are big projects that are going to require.
If we were in a very closed situation in this town, I think you could approach it a little bit differently, but I agree with you. With everything that's going on and the building that's going on and the potential for businesses developing in and around the area where this is going on over the life of this bond, it makes sense to get that information.
Good. And what other big tickets? Obviously, we know we have a facility plan.
Ready.
The water. Sure.
There's two sides of it. I mean, we with the growth comes some other expenses that we have to look at.
100%.
That's sewer plant. Maybe big.
Fire support. I mean, there's a lot.
Yeah, that doesn't go away.
Yeah. I think it's essential, and it goes back to the communication part. We need this data and information in order to inform people about how this is going to affect them.
Well, and I've said this before, intended or certainly unintended, the last go around on this, I don't think we looked all that transparent. And I think this is a huge opportunity to put it all out there and give everybody the information and let them make a informed decision.
Like, walk along.
Yeah.
Oxygen masks will fall from the ceiling.
Yeah, and then of course the next bullet, right? I in terms of building community support and educating, I know that of course you have a municipal election coming up. Part of what I heard from Ryan was he wanted us to do our work this spring and get a referendum out last spring, right? That was a very aggressive timeline. That's what he had asked for. And I think the reason he asked for that is because he didn't want it to be an election issue. He didn't want it to be something that he or others were running for or against as part of the November election. Well, here we are. I think that, whatever your campaign is, you develop platforms and you ask people to vote for you. And we all know elections have consequences. Vote for me and I will advocate for these things or not, right? I think that, that has to be a part of our recommendation is, well, here we are. You have an important election coming up. Democracy is the way our system works and it's the greatest in the world. Put together your platforms and go out and shake hands and kiss babies and tell people what you're gonna do if you get elected. Is that fair? Or you don't like that? Let me know.
Well, what happens if you don't like what the financial planner tells you?
Right.
Maybe you're not here.
That's part of your.
I don't know. I think the board of select, I mean, I appreciate everything you've done. I think this looks great. But I think that a lot of things that the board of selectmen is just quite frankly gonna probably want.
Well,
vote on
and I think I said earlier, I think as we need to have face-to-face presentations for the public. I think we need to gather data as those folks are leaving to get their feedback. But I think if we don't take that, we have to allow ourselves enough time and we have to present this information to the public. We have to use the data gathered and the feedback from the public in drafting that bond question. You know, and if we have to adjust it, fine tune it a little bit to make this happen, then that's.
Say something.
It's gotta happen, but and I think everything you're asking for is.
I agree.
Believe we need all this information. For example, if it's gonna raise everybody's house 1,500, I believe it will. That might not work, but if it's gonna raise everybody's
Say
house
something.
500 or 300, whatever the number comes out to.
Yep.
be.
They ain't gonna,
Those
they're
are the
bah,
things
bah,
that
bah.
will help people get over the finish line. So I think the more information that the selectmen are gonna have, the easier this is gonna be. So, yes, I love the fact that potentially could get 60% reimbursement. I mean, that's big. I mean, let's be honest with each other. That's big for a
Yeah.
basically a new building. So
It's huge.
that's a big plus. So
That's a big plus.
And let me just, does Jen have any questions with kind of? She's still on there with us?
Yep.
I know, left her out in the woods there, you know.
Well, I think
She have any input that she wants to put in?
Ball field.
She probably listening.
All right.
Okay,
good enough.
So then, let me jump to the next one, and then of course, it's, once you have the conceptual order of magnitude and all of this information. Engage bond counsel, right? Go to Shipman and Goodwin Bond Counsel and. One thing we learned from Fryer in the last round is there is some negotiation that happens with respect to how the question is phrased for the ballot, right? So. You know, all of this needs to be reflected in what shows up and what people are asked to vote. Make sense?
Yep.
And then the last bullet, ensure accurate information gets out, you know, but make sure everybody, you know, that's why I don't know that November is a realistic timeframe. I think that all this needs to happen, and then absolutely big presentations and discussions and, you know, campaigns, information campaigns to make sure people know what it is that would occur. That's a lot. I'm sure you could support that. So you're comfortable with these bullets. And again, you never voted on these. I added them, but as long as I see a lot of shaking heads, you're comfortable, I'll put them in your report. And I mean, I guess by voting to approve the report, you're authorizing the bullets, but you know, otherwise tell me, I'll take them out or change them or add.
Let's say, let's move forward.
All right, so the next section then is just the state reimbursement is a moving target and it is very confusing, right? So I just put some information in there. And of course, you know, since we've written, it's changed. Now it's not 51% anymore. Now it's 50 for the.
Well, that's my question.
Yep.
Do we want to update it knowing that we have a more current number, but it might change next year? So do we want to remain conservative and leave it at 51, or do we want to reflect what is currently accurate?
Currently,
Currently accurate is 54.
stated what it
Yep,
is.
yeah. All right.
And that's
As
definite.
From.
Well, that's as of July 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when does it change again? July 1?
Next July 1.
So
But
are we
it's
gonna-
important, but that.
Are we gonna have everything ready by next July 1 for the numbers?
Well, so
'Cause
if,
If not, then
if-
that number can be.
correct me if I'm wrong, Charles, if this passes, say we did it in the May referendum. You do the report,
Yeah, when you
the educational specs and all that stuff. By June 30th, 2026,
Yeah, so what'll happen is,
Even though-
again, if everybody's like go on your time for that this fall, demographic study, developing an ed specs plan, financial analysis, conceptual order of magnitude budget, David Eisenthal does his thing. Bond question is developed. If that all happened and everything went swimmingly, and then April, we went out and this passed. I submit the grant application June 30th. That the day, June 30th to July 1 is an interesting, things could change, but
right.
submitting it on June 30th, from what I understand, locks us into the rate that was published the July 1 before, which is the 54%. So if we wake up the next morning and it's 58%, we miss that boat. But if we wake up the next morning and it's 50%, we're glad we locked it in. So there's like a risk. But what I just heard from Bob tonight is that may be changing. Like, I don't, maybe changing.
Yeah, we need to look into that. It could just be the new DIP one that's monthly, but there was a news conference today and there were some HVAC players at that news conference. One of ours was there that works for us, and he said there's a lot of new information related to the new construction grants, as well as there's a new grant out there for smaller projects to handle and to go after right away. And each town has allocated a certain amount of money already, which we know what we're eligible for, about 83,000. So we'll be going after that right away. So we just need to clarify some of the timing on
Clarify
the
how,
new
what
construction.
what the new legislation. would
Yeah,
be, how
they
it's
combined
impacting.
it. You know, obviously, you know that the HVAC and stuff grant went away. All right, well, what they did was it was just not, it just didn't go out properly and it wasn't handled properly administratively, and it kind of failed up front. So the state really tried to repair that. And they combined it.
They incorporated it into the school
Took it
bonding.
right into the school bonding and the new construction grants and stuff. So it's
So I
pretty
think-
interesting how they did that.
So you don't know whether the monthly approval is specific to the HVAC piece or.
Well,
the
actually,
playground
it's specific to the new DIP,
drip.
Correct.
drip, I'm sorry. I
District
don't even know why they called it that. The new drip
repair improvement, something.
or specifically the
Programming.
school construction
Okay,
projects.
I see.
There's just, they basically just combine an awful lot of little pieces.
We need to get an answer. on
But
that.
yeah, so I'm working on that right
And
now.
the other thing that we get though, which is really important, why we have to get another architect, whether it's Fryer or Simon or somebody else to come in developing those conceptual order of magnitude budgets. The architects will tell us, this is your percent reimbursement we anticipate. These are the ineligible and eligible costs, which will be particularly helpful for the Gildersleeve project because we're not going for the full renovate to new, where it then starts to become dependent on roof and those ADA compliance things. So as they develop that, they're going to be saying, well, this is a school security issue, it's eligible for this. This is a roof issue, it's eligible for this. This is an ADA issue, it's eligible for this. These
So
other
they'll
things
give
are
us a
not.
complete picture of eligibility for reimbursement.
Which is nice.
Yeah, and there's an important key here. It says districts can receive an additional 15% point bonus to their reimbursement rates for school construction projects.
Oh,
If they include new and or expanded in-district special education programs,
Yeah.
including full elementary school construction projects and or programs, not just the construction part of it, but the programs.
Yes.
Just expanding your programs.
Could be
and stuff.
huge.
So something that we can look into, that's huge.
Did we ever find out, I'm pretty sure I asked this question, did we ever find out if that open choice up to 5% is eligible on the renovate to nice stuff too, or whatever you want to call it, alterations?
I believe it is. I believe that is for new construction, which renovates and new is considered.
Right.
Okay.
So it'd be
I'm
on
I'm
there.
shocked that it doesn't encompass that.
But speaking of that, under the renovation reimbursement chunk that you've written here, I would love to clarify. The additional bonuses that will apply for Portland. When you address the 5% bonus, for dedicated pre-K spaces, which will likely apply at Valley View. But then you say up to 10% bonus for expanding access to open choice program. And I know that that's the statewide eligibility. Our commitment in Portland is we open 5% of our seats and we don't have, the Board of Education has expressed that there's no intention to change that right now. So I think it would be more accurate to, even though that's what is available, I think it'd be more accurate to reflect what we currently have. We anticipate 5% reimbursement from the open choice seats that we make available.
Done. That's really important. So I don't believe there's an intention to open more open choice seats to get us. So right now, our district enrollment is 1,200. We try to keep our open enrollment seats at 60, which is 5%. I don't believe there's an appetite to make the open choice enrollment be 120 students, which would make us be eligible for up to 10%. But in my conversations with the board, I think we're comfortable at the 5%. So explaining that here is, I think, what you're asking for, right? Laura?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And then, if we're updating the 54%, that is what we are currently, as of July 1st, we are currently eligible for 54% as our baseline reimbursement.
Yeah.
Then you need to anticipate, the next sentence, you'd anticipate maximum reimbursement to, you've got it at 56. I mean, that puts us at 59, but you're not including the 5% of Valley View. So I guess, if there's a way to kind of explain that the 59% is, it includes our base level reimbursement along with
5%.
along with the open choice seats. As a conservative guess, we may very likely end up, potentially up to 5% higher than that.
Got it. I totally understand.
Thanks.
Because people might think, well, if it's 10%, get the 10%.
Right.
But that would require a change to what we committed to open choice.
Right.
So the new numbers, you said 54%.
Our base level is 54.
2 5s essentially.
We could potentially see up to 64%
That-
reimbursement
Yeah,
at
I
Valley
think
View.
that's a better state. To reflect, maybe make one of the bullet points spell that out.
Yeah, your baseline is your
Right.
59,
Right.
but the potential of 5%
Right.
more, and I think that's how you gotta
Potential
word it.
65 versus-
Right.
Yeah,
That's,
I think that.
I like when you said baselines is 59.
Our baseline is
Potential.
54. We anticipate 5% for our open choice seats and potentially another 5% for our pre-K
Right.
program, which would put us at 64,
Well,
but we want to be
Yeah.
a little bit conservative.
So the 5% on the
You just looked at
pre-K
that.
is only for those areas that are for.
No, that is no
Yeah,
longer
but
true.
that's changed.
That has
is-
changed
Yeah.
in this most recent legislative season.
Oh.
One of the important changes for reimbursement.
So
Yeah.
what you just said,
reimbursement-
Laurel, that,
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Pre-K
Right, is the
reimbursement
way
is
she
now
said it.
eligible for the entire building and not just the areas
Four,
of pre-K,
5,
areas of your building.
think
that are
that
is-
pre-K.
maximum potential reimbursement is
54, 5,
this
5.
plus this plus this equals this.
Yeah.
Did you hear
Yeah.
what John
Listed
said,
right out.
Charles?
Yeah.
Open choice and then
54,
5%.
Yeah, put
Um,
like a bullet point maximum.
Plus
potential
this at X
reimbursement,
percent,
60%.
plus this at X percent,
Spell it out.
for a total maximum potential of.
Yeah.
I mean, people need to know that.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's
Yeah.
big.
100%. Yeah. That means to get that level of reimbursement on at least the Valley View project, I think it may make a lot of people say, lop off that 9,000 square feet. That's my only concern.
Well, we wouldn't be eligible for pre-K reimbursement.
Oh, that's true.
obviously,
Good
So
point.
you wouldn't get that extra
Excellent.
5%.
Right there.
But there is.
But there is the potential for what,
There is the potential for expanded special
Yes, what
education
Bob just said.
programming. Exactly.
Right.
you might be able to gain that back.
Yeah,
Some of that.
so
Well, we might get that
that's a
in.
separate conversation,
Yeah,
but yeah,
Well, things are
Yeah,
gonna
that's
change.
not-
Things are gonna evolve. I mean, things are,
It's random.
I mean, a lot of this is new information that we just got yesterday even. So yeah, I mean, I'll do my best to reflect the known knowns now.
Yep.
But also I'm thinking of a carve out to say, all of this is subject to change based on
yeah.
any number of changes out of Hartford. But right now the winds are blowing in our direction. The iron is getting hotter, right?
Mhm.
So let's put it out there. All right, so I think we can move quickly through pages 15 and 16 here and 17. This is just me directly addressing those concerns, how we address them, right? That concerns about the large school, well, that's off the table. All we're doing is going back to the way Valley View was. It used to be pre-K 2, we're going back to that. Gildersleeve is 3-5, 3 grades. It'll be, I mean, it's 2-4, 3 grades. It'll be 3-5, 3 grades. Moving the 6th grade up here might add a few more parents picking up kids at the end of the day, but we can manage it. It addresses the concerns about traffic and how by going back to the way things were, right? I mean, it was never an issue before when Valley View was a pre-K 2 school. Why would it be now? Essentially what it's, but it addresses those. And then I spend some ink going back to those 9 priorities and explaining how the committee believes that we've addressed those 9 priorities in this plan. Comfortable with that?
There's another, on page 14, there's another 51% that you just want to check.
Good catch.
Eligible versus, yeah, got it. Cool. Then page 17, I think that it's important. I laid out a suggested timeline. Now, this would be reflected in an ed specs plan that the Board of Ed has to vote on. Of course, the Board of Ed could recommend we change this timeline, but I thought it was important that this committee take a position, and as we present to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Education, say that, hey, this is the timeline we think would work, but understand that it's the Board of Education prerogative to change this as it would be reflected in that specs plan. So again, this summer, I think we have a tentative date, but we'll have to firm that up. We present this to a joint Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen meeting, and I think we got to take it on the road. Make it a focus of my convocation, back to school meetings with faculty, PTO meetings, like put it on the website, start talking to everybody about this. This fall, of course, leverage the elections and let it be a campaign issue. I hope that it's talked about by those folks who are seeking to glean the will of the voters, right? And so that's what it should be, a big campaign issue. It's probably the most expensive thing Portland's ever invested in at this point. So imagine it will be subject to lots of discussion and debate. Winter, we have to do all of those things. We have to do the demographic study to get the financial planner working. Get the conceptual order of magnitude budget being developed by an architecture firm, again, whether that's Fry or someone else. I think that another RFP do all of these things this fall and winter. I'll lay them all out there. Spring, educate people and hopefully schedule a referendum this spring. If that happens, right? And this is again, kind of where you were talking about, couldn't you just do Gildersleeve first, right? This envisions that we would not change anything in our current schools this year or next year, because we would be, if we prevail at a spring referendum, putting in a grant application in June, waiting till the following December. If it is all approved, then planning for the 2027-28 school year, 2 years from now, we'd see the first shift. That first shift would be 6th grade to the middle school, pre-K 2 to Gildersleeve, 3-5 to Brownstone. Spend that year doing the work at Valley View. Once the work at Valley View is done, move pre-K 2 to their new home, leave 3-5 at Brownstone, do the work at Gildersleeve in the following year. And then once the work at Valley View is done in the 2029-30 school year, move grades 3-5 to the updated Gildersleeve and turn over the keys to Brownstone to Park and Rec Youth Services. The work at the high school and at Valley View likely can be done concurrent with this happening, as we won't need to empty the schools. Bob thinks we can do these things in the summer, particularly with the roof and the HVAC systems and the electrical, hopefully at Brownstone as a summer project that wouldn't require us, because it doesn't involve abatement of hazardous materials or anything, or severe interruptions to the education that's happening in those buildings during those times. So I'm envisioning Brownstone and the secondary school happening concurrent with major projects at Valley View and Gildersleeve.
How can you make Gildersleeve accessible for preschool?
Good, excellent question. What I'm thinking of, I've met with Ryan and Tracy, and we're thinking that the current art room and music rooms become the pre-K space because it's got the drop off. It's got its own area. The problem is the bathrooms, right? That the closest bathroom's right around the corner there, but it's not bathrooms in the classroom. So that will be rough. That will be rough, no doubt. I don't know if there's a trailer of bathrooms, but I don't think we need them. It was just, they won't be in the bathroom, in the classroom. It will.
I'm just thinking of friends who need, that can't walk into a bathroom on their own. Like paras that have to help friends use the restroom
They'll have to do that.
in a regular stall. There's kiddos that have to be changed. Just something, I mean,
Makes
I've
sense.
lived it, I've
We'll have
done
to
it.
make- Yeah, we'll have to talk to see if we can make arrangements for that, yeah. The best part about that on those is those are larger bathrooms because they're newer. Down in that wing, that's why we kind of looked at that. If we have to make temporary renovations to be able to do that.
Well, that's what I'm asking,
Thank
because
God
it's,
Well,
It has the
There's
size.
no doubt it'll be challenging, but I am confident that our principals and our staff.
Yeah.
And Darcy,
will
well,
be
it's not
able
a
to-
confidence, it's not, I'm not
We'll be
questioning
able to-
confidence, I'm just saying I've lived that and
Yeah.
like I do it at camp here. And bringing some of these little friends into the high school, it's terrifying to bring them in that big bathroom. So I've felt
they're gonna
and
be
been with
Terrifying for the
friends.
kids.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say
because
a
they
couple
can't-
things to that too, like that will have a year to plan for that. Like, we're gonna
Well,
have
that's what I'm
to.
asking, if there will be money and things done, because when we had talked about this in the beginning, it was like, we're not putting any money into making these schools
Right.
right for the movement part, but that would be a very big deal. Like I have worked with all of those lovely people in preschool and I can see them now saying, how do I do this?
Right, that one is a concern for me too. I hear you. And the other concern I have is very much. Bob and I will be doing a lot of work. I don't care if we have to build a moat around that school. Having third and fourth graders at Brownstone as we start to see the impact of a 50 million Nordic spa start to come online. Will be something we need to plan for, right? I mean, we have to consider this interval for 2 years. We will have third, fourth, and fifth graders in a school that I'm not 100% convinced is in a state where it is right now, ready to welcome those students in a way where we can move them in and out of that building and give them recess. It may take some money to get the fencing or whatever we need. Bob and I got some work
Well,
to
I
do,
mean,
and we
yeah,
will get
the
the experts
same-
in to help figure that out.
The
but-
same would go for the preschool over at Gildersleeve. They need a fenced in area to play outside.
So
That
we
could
will.
be Temporary stuff can be done.
Right,
That's-
right.
Yeah,
But
there.
before, when we had started this whole program, it was said like
How
we
many
can't
classrooms are needed?
for preschool too.
But why not put those toilets in a couple of the front classrooms that we discovered the flanges are still on the floor and dedicate to? You already got the sinks outside the bathroom.
Yeah, we might, that is part of that look as far as moving temporarily a couple of classrooms, maybe for the pre-K. We just kind of looked at that wing, but there's a lot of further study that needs to go into that. The wing in the back is nicer, it's a little more spacious, the bathroom is bigger, but yeah, it's not in the room, so.
Right, at least that might, if in the room is a critical issue.
Yeah, it is.
Unless there's a staff bathroom in that hallway that was then dedicated to preschool friends. It's just something that
Makes sense.
if I were in there
Pretty sure.
and I have been in there, I would
Mhm.
want to make sure. And I understand about the third and fifth graders there, but I also know like Kids Blast is there with kiddos much younger than that. And Kids Blast has a great track record of kids being at Poundstone, so it can be done.
Yep. Anything can be done. It just will require some planning and maybe some money and funding. But if the nice thing is if the referendum passes in the spring, we will have 2 years to put some very smart people on this job. So then the last thing I got is just links to a lot of documents. Folks can click through these and take a look. These are all the things that you looked at over the past 6 months and imagining that There are, of course, many things not on here, like the education specifications plan, the then hopefully soon to be new demographic study, the amortization. This will be added to as we move further down.
Any questions?
No, Charles and Claude, this was a tremendous amount of work and thank you for all your effort to accurately reflect what our conversations were, the work that this committee did. It's very appreciated.
Yeah, I'd also like to thank everybody. I think it was great serving with everybody. Obviously I have, different views on a few of the things, but a few of the things I wanted to point out. So over the years, obviously, I served on the Board of Selectmen, I served on the Board of Education. During those timeframes, we assume when budgets are created and, this is not a dig to Dr. Britton. I think he was on the tail end, just as it gets started with Casanola. Obviously, I was under Sally Doyen, helped, Philip O'Reilly, Dr. O'Reilly get hired. I did not work with Charles. I was on the Board of Education, and I just find it hard to believe over the years that we've never properly budgeted for repairs. And I think it's so important to bring it up, and I'm going to. So when a budget's created, whoever has the building, whether it's on the town side or on the Board of Education side, and I understand the buildings are town buildings, but controlled by the Board of Education, they still need to be maintained. And shame on me, when I served on the Board of Education, I always assumed that everything that was needed was getting done and it was put in our budgets and it was done properly. And who am I to know that something's not being budgeted for when it's needed? So that really upsets me over time, because obviously this is a pattern. The town has more buildings, not as much square footage as the Board of Education, but it maintains it and has older buildings like the police station. And we somehow repair these as we go, and we fix them, and we should. And I think as taxpayers, we'd all like to see in budgets, things get repaired. And moving forward, obviously, the high school, middle school complex is 208,000 square feet, which is massive in my opinion. The new Valley View and Gildersleeve are going to equate to maybe 89,000 square feet. But at the end of the day, we still have to maintain all these. And I think the biggest thing that hasn't been talked about in all this, and I'm glad we came to a conclusion, and I'm glad this is moving forward, and I've only got a couple of minutes to talk about this. I think the reality is we've never budgeted properly for maintenance. And I think that's pretty evident on where we're at. One of the major problems I have with proceeding with this is our buildings are rated by Fryer and our assessor at C's and B's. We're not a D or an F. I want to be a realist, and maybe this passes, and that's great, and I have no issue with that. But if it fails, we have to be prepared and start talking about, well, how do we move forward with other things? So I think this is a good plan. I love the fact that we're getting more reimbursement now. I think that's wonderful. But I also want to speak for a lot of people that are scared on big numbers. I mean, we're talking 90 million. Hopefully the percentage to the taxpayers is going to be whatever it is, just shy of 50-ish, which is a big ticket. I think it's great that we're going to request that numbers be produced, that we can start to see what it's actually going to cost the taxpayers. I think that's going to be what either makes or breaks this ultimately at the end. I think that's why I won't be voting in favor of it, because I don't believe we're going to be able to maintain everything and afford the $50 million bill. I think our reality is we probably need, Bob knows better than I do, but at least $1.5 million a year just to maintain the 300,000 square feet that we're going to have. I don't think it's going to be unrealistic. These are big numbers, and by the time you come up with the new bond numbers, and I think more importantly, now that we've identified which building to close, and it's the majority says the brownstone, keep in mind whatever or the majority of the savings that we were going to get, there's a cost now. We're still going to keep the lights on, we're still going to heat it, we're still going to mow it, we're still going to plow it. We're still gonna insure it. We're gonna fill it. We're just putting the burden over to the other side. So, and I don't know what number the hard number at the end, if it was 700,000, that we would save. And there's maybe, well, we still need custodians and there'll be some administration, there'll be some savings, but I don't believe it's gonna be anywhere near the number we thought, due to the fact that we're now just instantly turning that into another town liability. So when you start to put all these things on the table, it's just gonna be, and I want it to pass, guys. I'm not gonna campaign against it or, anything, you know, this is a big deal for Portland, but keep in mind, this is a big number. And I think the reality is I just want everybody to stay open-minded that if it fails, we have to start talking about potentially just having a massive repair number and start fixing these things. So, because either way, the majority of our square footage is up here, it's old. Overwhelming majority, more than 2/3. So I just wanted to put that on the record. But that was it. And it was great serving with all you guys.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'll just comment on some of the budgetary, that Ben mentioned about budgetary items for building maintenance throughout the entire town. I've been part of them all. Not only on the fire side, but in DPW, all the town buildings, and now the Board of Education. I've been part of the budget process for 22 years here, and it's unfortunate that you, Ben, as a member of the Board of Select, as well as a member of the Board of Education, were presented a budget to look at. That was a budget that was produced, was cut. In other words, what I'm saying is you never saw the original budget and requests from the directors and those organizations, and it still happens today.
Right.
To be able to actually see, unless we go up there and speak on behalf of our old budget, which is difficult to do. And it would be a book in front of you for every line item and every job. So I've always said that that's a disservice for the Board of Select to really not actually see what we requested versus what is in front of them to decide and deliberate on, which is a huge difference. And I will say, we went from $1 million a year in 20 years to $15 million in capital, because during that time, very little, if anything, was funded. So that's how you get to those numbers. And some of those maintenance items that got pushed out become capital items. And then when you can't afford them in your budget, your operational budget, and you don't get funded in capital, exactly to your point, here we are.
And
So
shame-
in general, we have to do better.
Yeah, shame on me for not figuring that out soon enough, and I did. And I don't know if Jonathan knows that they have all this backdoor and cut this and it's not right. So if things are being requested over the years by the Board of Education and I'm just as equal on fire department, town, everything should be within reason, but we need a realistic budget. We have massive square footage, we have massive liabilities, and I think we're ignoring them. I think it's gonna just come and bite us later, so I'm not mortgaging your future.
Thank
you.
Years ago, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Education also, way back in the day, used to tour the buildings with the capital expense committee, with the director of facilities,
The long range
back in the
capital.
long range panel. So
Yeah.
they actually saw what, and then them days, Paul Bankston was asking for. And then that all stopped. Somewhere that got lost in the shuffle. I went and did it on behalf of the park side, or even on Paul's behalf at athletic fields or outside stuff that was going on, whether it was parking lots or whatever. That all stopped.
Mm.
And to me, I just look at capital now, and I'm not throwing dirt at anybody. It just seems to fund vehicles and equipment. And that's not a dig, because it's a very expensive thing, whether it's a fire truck, whether it's highway department equipment, grounds equipment, police cars, whatever. We can't seem to get too far beyond that. The town facilities are not as big magnitude as this. When I stepped into that job, November 5th, 2018, and started seeing what I was seeing inside, because I didn't see that before. I was overwhelmed to the point of, and I said to Dr. O'Reilly, I said, we don't have enough money to take care of these places. I went right into a budget with him. And I said, we just don't have enough money. I saw what was going on in this thing that everybody still kind of considered new. And it wasn't new. And some of the guys in the facilities maintenance department said, These are 25-year buildings now. They're not all brick and mortar anymore like they used to be. They're sheetrock. They're this, it's, things have changed, and I constantly watch, if you read the River East, you can see locally what's going on here, Hebron, all these other towns are trying. I sent you guys a thing one night, for Westbrook. They have a roof committee. And they're planning out 5 years from now. Nothing needs a roof right now, but they're starting the plans for roofing,
For other town facilities.
right? You saw what I sent you guys. I said, I was blown away when I read that. I said, wow, nobody wants to see this, but that's a smart move.
Yeah.
That is a smart move. That is a big, and they are probably equal facility sizes that we are, pretty close to that, I mean, but I give them a lot of credit for doing that. And there's got to be a lot of work. And, you got things, I mean, you just take computers and stuff alone, trying to keep up with, right? The purchase of computers and everything that goes on. I understand where people want their money to go, but we can't. And I always wondered right off the bat, why didn't this school get a roof on it? The high school. I believe it probably didn't qualify. I don't know when, and my source to find that out is unfortunately gone. But
I mean, 20 years ago when the middle school
Right.
was renovated.
didn't get a roof.
Yeah, they didn't do the high school.
Didn't get a roof. I mean, they did everything else here but the roof. So that was telling me, because really, I mean, if you take that back then, it was probably $1.5 million, whatever. It was peanuts in the big project, but so there must have been something there that held that back.
They could have just increased our population, not the students.
I don't know, but anyway, said by me, you're right.
Been 8 years for replacement
Yeah.
and we needed to save money. It's as simple as that when you're looking at the big numbers, when you're starting to cut stuff like that.
But there is 30-year roofs.
Well, the state,
Right,
yeah, if you're gonna get funding for it, it
Right.
has to be qualified or.
right.
Yeah.
So like
But you're doing maintenance on it
Brownstone,
in
when they put the new roof on Brownstone, they put a 20-year roof on that. And I was concerned, being the director of facilities then, that 9 years had already gone by. And within the next 10 to 11 years, we might be needing a roof down there. And I was very concerned with loading that with, I get why you wanted to do it, and I wasn't against that, but I was very concerned with that. We had no leaks. But in order to do that, there was some agreements made that all the seams and everything were going to be reinforced. That was a 20-year roof. Well, asked for a 30-year roof. He didn't get it.
Which is crazy, but
It is. So in the long term, we need to think about things like that when we do it, or somebody does. Because right, all the labor, all the work's going into it. You're just upgrading the better membrane, and
Yeah.
that's the time to do it.
The
It's,
state's not gonna fund a
no,
20-year.
it's so much better
Which
to
is good.
put in.
They force you into that longevity.
Yeah. Anyway,
Boss.
anybody else?
I want to thank you, Ben, for saying that you're not going to actively go out and oppose this plan. I was concerned because quite honestly, I think what happened with the last referendum and the way this town was split and all those vote no signs everywhere did not do any of us any good. I will agree that that was all prompted because you know me, I've been all about educate since day one on that previous project and this one. I think we did a terrible job in getting the information out. And I'm going to push very hard to ensure that this project, I mean, it's very easy to say, oh, we got all the paperwork, we put everything on this website, people can review it. We're talking about education, and there's some people in this room who are teachers. You know that if you don't tell your kids and force your kids to study for those exams, they're not going to study for it. Until we sit people in the auditorium and explain this process to them, why we're doing what we're doing and how the process works, and that threshold where once you surpass that threshold, you go from a capital improvement to a full restore. People need to understand that. And, and I'll say we need to be transparent. we need to present a united front as far as this plan going forward, whether we agree with it or not, we have to all be open to presenting the information to the public and letting the public give us their feedback. And I think if we try to take the data back and we don't use that data that we receive from the public, what their feedback is and what their feelings are, we're not doing our due diligence. You know, it's very easy to come up with this plan, and I agree, Charles, with everything that you're trying to get all this data so that we make sure that what we're doing is correct. But if the majority of the public that sit in the auditorium and listen to this plan, walk out and an exit survey says that they're still concerned, this is the max that they're willing to pay, then we need to be able to flex a little bit and find a way for this plan to work and still not sock the taxpayers. And hopefully, if this percentage reimbursement we get is larger than expected, and we can find ways to tweak a few things here and there, we can have a plan that works. But I'll say again, this 99% of presenting this plan is for everybody to look at us and see that we are working together, that we had a common goal, whether we all agree with the end result or not. We have to make sure that they look at this group and see that what they're getting is transparency. What they're getting is diligency in terms of our effort here, and that we're trying to do our best for the town. That's bottom line for me. But I really believe that we have to get that information out there and avoid what we went through with the last vote, because that didn't do this town any good.
But keep in mind, the numbers may come back horrific, and then you may have a different, you know.
Yeah.
If numbers come back horrific, then, you know, we have to tack, and we've got to, but if you involve the public in this process, actively involve the public, then the public is part of it. And there's no secrets, there's no confusion, and whether they like it or not, you're going to get a vote that is real.
Yeah.
And I think the vote that we got last time had a lot of holes in it because a lot of people didn't understand.
I agree.
Anybody else? Okay, so do we vote on this tonight?
Yeah, I
It's
would,
just a.
I would love.
Okay,
wanna
all
make a
right.
motion?
Yes, you can.
Great. I would make a motion to approve this report prioritizing improvements needed for each school building. As amended, with all of the changes that we had all approved together as a group this evening.
There a second on that?
I'll second that.
Oh, Jen.
I was here.
Always beats you.
That was Jen Martinez on.
Yeah.
He's a committee member. He just was not able to make, he's on Zoom.
Always.
So. Okay. Just so we're clear, Charles is gonna redo this thing and send it out to us, but we're gonna see what we all requested here tonight and the corrections and omissions and whatever.
Names correct,
All the
Huh?
edits.
correct spelling of names.
Whichever. All those in
No, we
favor?
had a Discussion,
What's that?
discussion.
Well, yes. Any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Think that was unanimous, right?
No.
No, okay. One no. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
One no. All right. Motion passes. All right, so do we need to set any additional meetings? Not right now, right? We're gonna go with wherever this goes. Everybody will see this. You're gonna send a
I'm
new
gonna
copy
Talk
out.
to Mike and Laurel, and we're gonna schedule a joint Board of Ed, Board of Selectmen meeting. I think we have tentative date, the middle of August, but we got it.
Mike Pelton had recommended that we do this ahead of the Board of Selectmen's August meeting, I think on August 20th.
Okay.
But that's tentatively. you'd
I
suggest it.
mean, I don't know if I'm talking to the right group, but I would make a suggestion for that meeting if it's publicized. We may want to have it in a larger room.
Yeah, I think the last time that, when it was, whichever previous committee, the facility study committee presented in the auditorium, and I think that was a good space for that.
I hear
So
it
that there's
needs to be.
20 here at the high school. middle
Yeah,
school.
I think it needs to
So
be.
that
I
there's
would,
plenty
I
of
would,
space for the
I would
public to
recommend
attend.
that to Mike. I think
Yeah.
that needs to be.
I think that's a good
Okay.
idea.
Rent?
It's rented?
Oh, you want to rent it? No.
Well, I know that there was a play,
I'm looking right
a
now.
play group that used to.
No,
come.
they're, we're all out of that, actually, no. There's freshman orientation on Wednesday, the 20th, between 4 and 6 PM, 6:30 PM, so that's gonna be difficult.
Okay, so maybe we'll ask Charles, if you want to work with Mike
Yeah,
Pelton
we're-
to find a date that will
Yeah,
work
'cause then
with our auditorium
orientation
space.
can't Really going anywhere else, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions will be answered once we do all those studies.
Yeah.
That's gonna be what.
Yes.
really is gonna-
But I
Maybe
think-
that needs to be. what-
But I really think if we promote this joint meeting and there are public that are interested, this may be the start of engaging the public.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we don't have 35 people show up down the main street and then not have enough room for everybody.
Yeah, agreed.
It wouldn't be right.
Good point.
Yeah, we'll have to look at that.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
It has to be in the auditorium in a big enough space that you
Yeah.
can't even cram the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen in
No.
the space on Main Street. I know, and then anybody, and then this committee and it.
Okay,
that's
so,
out.
No thanks.
so you're gonna work on that with Mike and we'll talk about that. Right. We're good with that. Public comment? Anybody on there for public comment? Okay, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Thank